Imagine losing 50 kilograms.
Yeah.
Like you show up to this massive family event and the reaction is just immediate.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Right. You are totally flooded with praise. Everyone is pulling you aside, telling you how incredible you look. They're marveling at your willpower, asking for your secret.
Yeah, getting the standing ovation.
Exactly. You smile, you graciously accept the compliments, but deep down, you are hiding this really terrifying reality. You have completely, thoroughly broken your own body in the process.
Wow.
I mean, you are so depleted, you don't even have the energy to get out of bed the next morning to study.
The contrast there is just staggering because the outside world is giving you like this huge round of applause for discipline and beauty, right?
Yeah.
But internally, your biology is essentially going into system failure. It really highlights this massive blind spot in how we actually measure well-being.
Welcome to today's deep dive. We are unpacking a truly fascinating story today, drawing from a really in-depth talk by dietitian Kaur.
It's such a compelling source.
It really is. We're going to explore her unbelievable journey of going from 116 kilograms way down to 60 kilograms over a year and a half. But, this isn't just your standard before and after story.
Right, it's so much more than that.
We are diving into the science and the psychology of how she finally stopped fighting her biology and started, working with it. Unpacking her 7 highly practical, sustainable tips for lifelong health.
And the value of the source material, I think, really lies in the stark difference between her 2 attempts at weight loss.
Definitely.
Because her first attempt is just this masterclass in the physiological damage of extreme restriction. While her second attempt, that's a blueprint for actual sustainable human health.
The way I see her early life, it's almost like a massive, heavy pendulum.
Okay, I like that visual.
On one side, you have this sort of baseline indulgence and maybe a lack of awareness about nutrition. But then a trauma occurs, and that pendulum gets pulled all the way up to the opposite side, extreme restriction.
Literally going to war with her own body.
Right. So I really want to figure out how you finally stop that pendulum from swinging so violently.
Well, you have to look at the force that initiated the swing in the first place, right? In her case, it was a deeply ingrained sense of shame.
Yeah, that makes sense.
If we look at her background, she openly describes herself as a fat kid. But the crucial detail here is that early on, she was actually really happy in her body.
She loved dancing, didn't she?
Yes, she was incredibly passionate about it. Bharatanatyam, Bhangra. She just loved being on stage and moving her body.
So her weight wasn't a problem for her until, society aggressively decided it needed to be a problem.
Exactly. That's the tragic turning point. The bullying started creeping in during her early teens. But the actual breaking point wasn't even a direct insult to her face.
Wait, what happened?
Her brother got into a physical fight at school, trying to defend her against body shaming.
Oh, wow. That's heavy.
Yeah, and that incident layered so much guilt and trauma onto her that she just quit dancing entirely. She abandoned the one thing that gave her joy, confidence, physical movement.
She just shrank away.
Yeah.
She withdrew to make herself invisible, which really sets the stage for the explosive reaction later.
It absolutely does.
Because fast forward a bit, she's 16 or 17, she attends a family wedding, and the older relatives are just relentless.
Oh, the aunties and uncles.
You know the exact kind of comments, like, who will marry you? Or, you're a girl, you need to look a certain way.
The social pressure just reaches a boiling point. The trauma of that public humiliation at the wedding, that's the hand that pulls the pendulum as far back as it can go.
Right.
She basically vows to completely change her body before the next family wedding, which is just 6 or 7 months away.
And her response is absolute physiological warfare. I mean, she cuts out carbohydrates entirely.
Completely gone.
She removes all processed food and sugar. She even, and this blew my mind, she cuts out iodized salt.
Yeah, that is incredibly dangerous.
She throws herself into a severe calorie deficit and spends 3 to 4 hours a day grinding away in the gym.
Biologically speaking, a human body just cannot sustain that level of output on such minimal input.
Right.
But the really dangerous aspect is the social feedback loop, because she does drop 35 kilograms. She hits 60 kilos by the time at the next wedding, and society validates the self-destruction.
It is so incredibly toxic. I mean, we push back on this a lot, but we give people a standing ovation for essentially starving themselves. just because they fit into a smaller outfit.
Exactly. We conflate aesthetics with cellular health.
We see a shrinking waistline and we immediately project, oh, discipline, health, and virtue onto that person.
Yeah.
Why does our culture celebrate the aesthetic result when the method is clearly destroying them?
Because the relatives applauding her at that wedding couldn't see the internal damage. They couldn't see the hormonal disruption, the muscle wasting, or the psychological torture required to maintain that deficit.
It's all invisible.
Right. And for Anurit, that validation was like a drug. She pushed even harder, chasing smaller and smaller clothes, until she dropped to 45 kilograms.
That's a total loss of 50 kilos.
And then the engine completely seized up. Her energy levels just hit rock bottom.
She couldn't focus on her studies, right? Like, she couldn't even get ready in the morning.
Yeah, she was bedridden. She finally goes to a doctor, and the diagnosis is a nightmare. Multiple nutritional deficiencies, and she had developed hypothyroidism.
Because of the salt.
Cutting out iodized salt was a critical error. The thyroid gland desperately requires iodine to produce hormones that regulate your entire metabolism.
Oh, man.
So by starving her body of calories, overtraining, and removing a vital mineral, she essentially forced her metabolism to shut down as a survival mechanism.
Like he was just trying to keep her alive.
Exactly. Halting all non-essential functions. Her doctors bluntly told her she needed to start eating and gain the weight back just to survive.
Which ushers in the rebound, and this specific chapter of her life is so deeply ironic.
It really is.
To understand what went wrong, she moves to Chandigarh to study nutrition. She is literally sitting in college courses studying the exact metabolic pathways she just destroyed.
Learning how to properly fuel the human body.
But theoretical knowledge rarely survives a hostile environment, does it?
No, it doesn't. She's living away from home for the first time. She has no cooking skills, no parental structure, so she relies entirely on the environment around her.
Which means eating out constantly. Breakfast is samosas and kolbachur from the canteen. Lunch and dinner are at restaurants with friends.
And then the ultimate environmental disruptor hits the global lockdown.
Right. All of her incidental physical activity just plummets to zero. But the most profound part of this phase isn't the junk food or the lockdown.
What stood out to you?
It's that despite having a textbook understanding of nutrition, she developed an absolute psychological paralysis when it came to losing weight again. The trauma of her first experience just terrified her.
If you view it through the lens of evolutionary biology, her brain was functioning perfectly.
Really? How so?
Well, the nervous system's primary job is to keep you alive. Her brain remembered that the last time she tried a quote-unquote diet, it resulted in starvation, exhaustion, and physical collapse.
Oh, so it tagged it as a threat.
Exactly. The nervous system tagged a calorie deficit as a mortal threat. So anytime she even thought about restricting her food, her brain likely sounded this massive internal alarm, spiking her anxiety and compelling her to eat to ensure survival.
That makes total sense. Like, she went to school and became a master mechanic to figure out why her car broke down in the middle of the highway.
Right.
But the memory of that fiery crash was so traumatic that she was absolutely terrified to even open the hood of her own car.
That is a brilliant way to frame it. She had the diagnostic tools, but the psychological firewall was just too thick to bypass, so the weight naturally crept back up.
By 2024, she had rebounded to 116 kilograms.
But the catalyst for change this time around was totally different.
Yeah, it wasn't another impending wedding. It wasn't a relative making a snide comment about her marital prospects. It was the quiet, undeniable reality of everyday life.
Which is often the loudest wake-up call.
She walked up a single flight of stairs to her room, and she was so alarmingly breathless that she had to lie on her bed for 2 minutes just to recover her oxygen.
The superficial aesthetic pressure had finally been replaced by a genuine biological crisis.
And the tests confirmed it, didn't they?
Yeah, when she got her blood tested, the results confirmed what she was feeling. She was pre-diabetic, she had high cholesterol, she had developed gallstones.
The immediate threat to her life finally outweighed the trauma of her past dieting experience.
Exactly. She realizes she has to actually open the hood of the car. But this time, the goal isn't a smaller dress size. It's sheer survival and vitality.
So she takes all her clinical knowledge and distills it into a sustainable long-term approach. And she uses this to safely lose 56 kilograms over a year and a half.
The approach she took is the exact antithesis of her teenage crash diet. It's entirely built on preserving the body rather than punishing it.
Let's explore how she rebuilt that foundation, starting with her first tip, which completely redefined fitness. She heavily prioritized strength training.
Yes.
And she specifically calls out a massive myth that keeps so many women away from the weights area, the fear of getting bulky or looking masculine.
It is such a persistent myth, and physiologically, it's virtually impossible for the average woman.
Right, because of hormones.
Exactly. Women do not possess the baseline testosterone levels required to accidentally pack on massive amounts of muscle. You don't just pick up a dumbbell a few times a week and wake up looking like a competitive bodybuilder.
It takes professional bodybuilders years of hyper-specific eating and training to get that look.
Precisely. The actual role of strength training during a fat loss phase is preservation.
Preservation of the muscle.
Yeah, if you only do endless hours of cardio while eating less, your body will happily burn muscle tissue alongside fat to meet its energy needs. But muscle is metabolic currency.
You need it for, like, everything.
You need to preserve it to support your joints, protect your bone density, and maintain your physical independence as you age. Lifting weights signals to your body that the muscle is necessary for survival and shouldn't be burned for fuel.
Which brings us to her second tip: balanced nutrition. Her perspective here is so refreshing because she refuses to demonize cultural staples.
No more cutting out carbs entirely.
Exactly. In her previous attempt, she cut them all out. Now, she emphasizes that roti and rice are not the enemy. Unless you have a specific medical condition like celiac disease, no single food is a villain.
It shifts the focus from restriction to composition. Instead of asking, what do I need to cut out, she asks, what do I need to add to this plate?
And what does she add?
She advocates for a balance, securing a good protein source, eggs, chicken, paneer, tofu, and combining that with fiber, healthy fats, and a very specific element called resistant starch.
Okay, I found this concept so fascinating in the notes. She mentions using cooled rice, cooled boiled potatoes, or overnight oats. Why does the physical temperature of the food matter so much?
It's actually a remarkable molecular transformation. When you cook a starchy food like rice or a potato and then let it cool down in the fridge, the internal structure of the starch permanently changes.
It's from getting cold.
Yep. It literally becomes resistant to being digested in the small intestine. So instead of breaking down into glucose and spiking your blood sugar, it travels intact down to your colon.
Wow.
And there, it acts as a premium food source for your beneficial gut bacteria. You are essentially hacking a regular carbohydrate, turning it into a super prebiotic that has a much lower glycemic impact.
That is wild. You completely change how your body processes the food just by putting it in the fridge.
Yeah.
But there's a massive trap she warns about when we start trying to eat better.
The calorie density trap.
Yes, the calorie density of healthy foods. She uses peanuts as the prime example. Peanuts are undeniably healthy, full of good fats and nutrients. But people will absent-mindedly eat an entire bowl of them while watching television.
And in doing so, they unknowingly consume maybe 800 or 900 calories of healthy fat in one sitting. That completely obliterates any calorie deficit they might have created during the day.
The wellness industry really fails us here. We are aggressively marketed these superfoods, nuts, avocados, olive oil, chia seeds.
Oh yeah, constantly.
We're told to eat them for glowing skin and heart health, but no one puts a giant warning label on the calorie density. It's exactly like putting premium high-grade fuel in a car, but just leaving the nozzle running until the tank overflows and floods the driveway.
That's a great analogy.
I mean, the gas is high quality, but it's still a disaster.
Right.
How do we actually balance the nutritional value with portion reality?
It requires a fundamental understanding of volume versus density, and Anurate provides a highly practical workaround for this.
What's her fix?
If you are someone who psychologically needs the physical sensation of volume-like, you just want to sit with a large bowl of a snack. You have to swap the dense peanuts for something like macana or foxnuts.
Oh, I've had those. They're super light.
Exactly. You can eat a physically massive bowl of macana for a fraction of the calories of a handful of peanuts. You get the crunch, you satisfy the need for volume, but you respect the mathematical boundaries of a calorie deficit.
That is such a good tip.
And importantly, she pairs this with mindful eating. No phones, no television. If you aren't paying attention to the meal, you will never hear the subtle biological signals your body sends to tell you it's actually full.
Right, you're just distracted eating. Okay, so we've got the fuel and the engine mechanics sorted out. But then she emphasizes 3 overarching pillars of health tips, 3, 4, and 5, that act like the oil and cooling systems of a car.
The invisible pillars.
And the best part is, they are entirely free. Tip 3 is non-negotiable hydration. Because if you are suddenly eating all this new protein and fiber, but you don't aggressively increase your water intake, you are asking for trouble.
You are essentially creating a biological traffic jam. Consuming high amounts of fiber without adequate water is like dumping dry cement into your digestive tract.
Oh, that sounds awful.
It is. There is no fluid to move it along, leading to severe constipation and discomfort. Furthermore, processing higher amounts of protein creates metabolic byproducts that your kidneys have to filter out.
So the kidneys need the water to flush it.
Exactly. Your kidneys desperately need water to flush that system clean. She suggests making the water more palatable, using infused waters, buttermilk, or chia water, but the baseline fluid intake just has to be there.
And the next pillar, tip 4, is the ultimate reset button: sleep and active stress management. Anurit points out something a lot of people conveniently forget when they start a fitness journey. Exercise itself is a massive physical stressor.
Oh, absolutely. You are literally causing micro tears in your muscle fibers.
So the gym is where you break the body down.
Yes. The gym is the stress. The actual growth, the healing, and the progress only happen in bed while you are sleeping.
Makes a lot of sense.
That 6 to 8 hour window is when your body actively reduces systemic inflammation, balances your hunger hormones, and physically repairs the muscular damage. If you consistently skip sleep, you are trapped in a cycle of breaking the body down without ever giving it the resources to rebuild.
Going to the gym and eating perfectly, but refusing to sleep or manage your stress, is like hitting the accelerator on your car with the parking brake pulled all the way up.
Exactly.
You are burning fuel, you're making a ton of noise, it feels like you're working hard, but you're just overheating and destroying the engine.
And chronic emotional stress is a very physical manifestation, too. It keeps your cortisol levels artificially high.
And cortisol messes with fat storage, right?
Yeah, it practically signals the body to lock stored fat in place, particularly around the midsection, as a protective measure. You have to actively bleed off that stress through walking, talking with a friend, or focused breathing.
Which leads right into her 5th tip, her approach to movement outside the gym. She focuses heavily on NEAT, non-exercise activity thermogenesis.
Essential for everyday burn.
Right, essentially the energy you burn just living your life. She correctly notes that a 1-hour gym session does not grant you immunity from the consequences of sitting in a chair for the remaining 23 hours of the day.
It really doesn't.
But she used a very specific tactic to combat her pre-diabetic state, walking for just 5 to 15 minutes immediately after eating her meals. Why right after a meal? Like, what is the specific biological connection there?
To understand that, we have to look at how the body processes a meal. When you eat carbohydrates, your body breaks them down into glucose, which floods into your bloodstream.
Okay, with you so far.
In a healthy system, your pancreas releases insulin, which acts like a key. The insulin unlocks your cells, allowing the glucose to enter and be used for energy. But when you are pre-diabetic, your cells become insulin resistant.
The lock is jammed.
The lock is jammed, the key isn't working.
So the glucose is just trapped in the bloodstream, damaging the blood vessels.
Exactly. But here is the evolutionary loophole that makes walking after a meal so magical. When your skeletal muscles are actively contracting, like your leg muscles during a brisk walk, they have the unique ability to absorb glucose directly from the bloodstream without needing insulin.
Wait, really, without insulin?
Yes. You completely bypass the jammed lock. A 10-minute walk acts like a biological sponge, soaking up that post-meal blood sugar spike and stabilizing your entire system.
That is absolutely incredible. You are literally using mild movement as a real-time medication to manage your blood sugar. So empowering.
It gives you immediate control.
Now, moving to tip 6, there is one final internal system she focused on, which is the gut microbiome.
Oh, the microecosystem. She points out that up to 50% of systemic diseases can trace their origins back to poor gut health.
Half of them.
Yeah. The microbiome is essentially the command center for your immune system, your digestion, and a huge portion of your neurotransmitter production, which obviously impacts your mood.
And she tackled this command center by feeding it prebiotics and probiotics.
Yeah.
We touched on prebiotics earlier, the fiber from fruits and veggies, and that amazing cooled resistant starch.
That is the actual food that feeds the good bacteria.
Right, and then the probiotics are the live bacteria themselves. She incorporated a lot of traditional cultural fermented foods, curds, buttermilk, kefir, pickles, and homemade congee.
By heavily populating and feeding the gut with these traditional fermented foods, you actively drive down systemic inflammation throughout the whole body.
And when your body isn't inflamed.
Exactly. When your body isn't in a constant state of red alert fighting internal inflammation, it feels safe enough to let go of stored body fat.
Which brings us to tip 7, The overarching philosophy that tied all of this together for her. Gradual consistency.
The long game.
The long game. This is where she finally broke the cycle of the pendulum. She strongly advises against drastic, sweeping lifestyle changes. Like, if you normally eat 4 rotis, do not suddenly drop to eating one.
Right. That's just setting yourself up to fail.
Do not go from 0 exercise to punishing yourself for 3 hours in the gym. She started by just slowly crowding out the junk food, committing to a very manageable 30 to 45 minutes of daily activity, and trusting the slow process.
Small daily habits.
This quiet consistency is how she safely, permanently lost those 56 kilograms over a year and a half.
It is the antidote to the extreme motivation that nearly destroyed her as a teenager. But, it requires a profound shift in mindset.
I think about human nature here. If you are listening to this and you've ever felt desperate to change your body, your brain is probably screaming that a year and a half is way too long to wait.
Oh, totally.
Why are we, as a society, so deeply seduced by the 30-day shred? Why do we eagerly buy into detox teas and diets that promise we'll lose 10 kilos in 2 weeks?
It's the immediate gratification.
Does our brain actually find daily, boring consistency harder to execute than a month of extreme, punishing torture?
It absolutely does, because of how our reward system is wired. We are fundamentally wired to seek immediate gratification and quick hits of dopamine.
So we want the fast result.
Yeah. When you undertake a massive extreme diet, it gives you a powerful illusion of control. You step on the scale after week 1, and because you've starved yourself and depleted all your glycogen, the scale drops by 3 or 4 kilos.
Which is mostly water weight, right?
Mostly water weight, but your brain doesn't care. It registers a massive victory and floods your system with dopamine.
You feel like a superhero for about 2 weeks.
Precisely. Extreme torture is fueled by adrenaline and has a clear finish line. Consistency, on the other hand, is neurologically boring.
Boring but effective.
Right. Eating a well-balanced plate of food and going for a 15-minute walk doesn't trigger a massive dopamine rush. It doesn't give you a dramatic before and after photo in 7 days. Consistency requires a fundamental shift in your core identity, not just a temporary burst of willpower.
Extreme torture has a finish line. Consistency is forever. That is a heavy but really vital realization.
It is.
Let's bring this all together. We have traced an incredible arc today. Anyard started as a traumatized teenager who practically starved her body into submission just to survive the punishing expectations of society, completely breaking her metabolism and losing her joy in the process.
And then she faced the consequences of that rebound, the prediabetes, the breathlessness, the paralyzing fear of trying again.
But she pushed through the psychological barrier. She empowered herself with clinical knowledge and rebuilt her health from the cellular level up.
She really did.
She reclaimed her cultural foods, refusing to fear rice or roti. She lifted weights to build metabolic armor instead of just shrinking herself on a treadmill. She stayed hydrated.
Prioritized her sleep to let her body heal.
Walked after her meals to manage her blood sugar. Nurtured her gut health with traditional fermented foods. And most importantly, she embraced the quiet boredom of a slow, sustainable process.
Taking a year and a half to reach 60 kilograms the right way.
Exactly. These aren't just temporary weight loss hacks. They represent a fundamental respect for the human body. You apply these principles not to punish yourself into a smaller size, but to build a robust engine that actually has the energy to experience life.
It's a complete shift from exercising to shrink to training to live.
I love that, training to live. But before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've spent this entire time analyzing the physical mechanics of health, the food, the muscle, the walking, the digestion. But consider this, how much of our physical weight is actually a direct manifestation of the emotional weight and the immense societal pressure we are forced to carry around with us every single day?
That is a deep question.
Right. If Anyard hadn't faced that intense, unrelenting societal pressure and body shaming as a young teenager, she never would have been traumatized into initiating that first violent cycle of extreme dieting.
She would have just kept dancing.
Exactly. Which really makes you wonder, if we didn't live in a culture that exerts suffocating pressure on people to look a certain specific way, would we actually find it incredibly natural to build sustainable, healthy habits? If the shame was removed, would that pendulum ever need to swing in the first place?